When I first played Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, within the first 30 minutes of the game, I found myself stumbling upon a door. Not any old door. It was a big, round, purple glowing door with chains on it. It stood there drawing my attention. Nearby, there were ruins of some old castle or fort, and Gimmighoul on top. Drowsy and Ghastly could be found nearby. As a Pokemon theorist, this is the kind of stuff I love. This is the stuff that I'm drawn to. As I continued my adventures across the map, I found other gates, other doorways. Who knew what was behind them? And then, once I had all of Koraidon's various traversal options, after defeating the Path of the Titans, I found stakes in the ground and connected them to the doors and went on a hunt for them all. I didn't follow a guide, and I was so proud of myself. I managed to find all of the stakes, all of their locations, and within these doors, I found contained 4 mysterious legendary Pokemon, all dark type with bizarre designs. All of their design elements here seem to be bound to some kind of item, a set of plates, a vessel or bowl of sorts, some beads for the little fish, and of course a sword broken in half. This is interesting. What are these items? What are these Pokemon? Why do they not fit the theme of the Paldea region really at all, being far more Chinese inspired than they are Spanish? At least as far as I know. Maybe I'm just really dense and ignorant, but I thought it was fascinating. I also thought it was fascinating that the theming of China and a kind of eastern region really fit with the top eastern corner of the map, where the music has changed, the landscape changes, the bamboo shoots are high. I wondered about the lore of these Pokemon, but I couldn't really find anything on them until I went to school. Don't skip out on history class. Miss Rifle is my new absolute favorite. Look at her. She's got her Lunala belt and her Marshadow hairpin and her Articuno necklace. This is a lady who likes legends, and I like legends too, so I enjoyed sitting in her class and becoming teacher's pet. And sure enough, after just a few lessons, he started opening up about the lore of these Pokemon, and in there, a Pokemon theory. So here is what we know from Miss Rifle and the Paldean fairy tale. Once upon a time, there was a king who very much enjoyed collecting treasure. Immediately, by the way, we have to stop right there. There was a king. There isn't a king in modern day Paldea. It seems likely if there was a king, it was during the Paldean Empire, which we know to have spanned from 2,000 to 1,000 years ago. To 800 years ago. That's when the school was founded and the empire was destroyed and the unification of the Paldea region happened. This is to say that Paldea was often at war at the time, according to Miss Rifle's lessons, with neighboring countries, but it seemed more, in the way it was described, that the Paldea region itself was multiple countries all at war with themselves until the unification happened 805 years ago. So the king of Paldea at that time may have had a region at civil war with itself, or maybe not, but it seems like this was happening during the Paldea Empire. And it was a long time, so there were probably multiple emperors and kings who reigned during that time. Anyway, back to the lesson. This king was very fond of treasures from other countries, and one day a merchant from the east heard rumors of this king and came to meet him. The merchant laid out 4 treasures in front of the treasure-loving king. These 4 treasures were as follows: a vessel, a sword, a set of tablets, and a set of beads. Seeing such rarities before him, he leaped for joy, and he showered the merchant with gold coins and claimed all 4 of the treasures for himself. So interesting, we have our merchant from the east, we have the eastern influence in the top right corner of the map, and we have these 4 treasures that turn out in fact to be these 4 Pokemon. Now, I've looked into these treasures, and this is what we know from the game. These particular tablets were wooden and used as a writing medium in the East in ancient times. As you may know, they fell out of popular use as paper became more universally available. For the king to consider these paper substitutes treasures, they must have been of superb quality, or perhaps they had some amazingly profound teachings on them. In fact, Miss Rifle has something to say about all these items as you show her the legendary ruins. The tablets, could they be Arceus tablets, wooden versions? Or the beads, could they be the kind of prayer beads that we find around the necks of the sages who are in the Ho-Oh's Tower in Johto? What about the sword? Could this be the legendary sword from the Veilstone myth that was used to slay Pokemon? These regions of Johto and Sinnoh, or Old Hisui as it would have been known then, they are in the east. They are inspired by Japan and areas of Japan, so perhaps they're from there? Except none of these items are really connected, and everything seems disconnected, and again, it's more kind of, as far as I can tell, Chinese in its origin than it is Japanese. I don't think these items are connected to any legendary that we already know, especially the bowl. I don't think we've got a legendary Pokemon that's focused on having a bowl around it somewhere. Anyway, back to the legend. The king obtained these 4 treasures on that very night, and on that very night, his castle fell to ruin. A disaster rained down upon his castle and it was reduced to rubble by dawn. The reason being, these 4 treasures were actually 4 Pokemon. And these 4 Pokemon, they were passed down from human hand to human hand as treasures, and they slowly became tainted by hubris and greed. Finally, after coming into contact with the king of the time, they awakened as disasters and began to rampage out of control. The king called for a renowned Pokemon wielders to defend the country, and after a fierce battle, the incarnations of these disasters were quelled. And it's said that these 4 Pokemon were sealed away somewhere in Paldea. And as we know, that much is true. The Pokemon wielders of that time, however long ago, did manage to do it. But I think I know exactly how long ago it was, when in the Paldean Empire. I suspect it was sort of bang in the middle, around 1500 years ago. Scattered all over the Paldea region are various watchtowers and the rubble of various castles and forts. I suspect they all belonged to that same king or that same ruler of the time. And the merchant, what happened to them in the story? That's what we don't know, and that's what I think I know. I think this happened 1500 years ago because of the Pokedex entries of a Pokemon called Gimmighoul that suggest that it became this way around 1500 years ago. Gimmighoul is a ghost, the spirit of something, but of what? Perhaps someone showered with coins by an ancient king. After all, it is the coin-seeking Pokemon. Perhaps the many Gimmighoul that are out there were once one and the same person. The merchant that came from the east, showered and cursed by these coins. After all, you can always find these Gimmighoul sitting on the rubble of the various bits of castle and on these watchtowers specifically that appear all over the Paldea region, but specifically close to the gates where these Pokemon were sealed. There is one more thing. I do think these disasters, these Pokemon really did cause a lot of havoc and destruction. Specifically, in the area of the map that takes that eastern influence. I believe that the merchant from the east knew exactly what they were doing. It was some kind of infiltration. They knew that they were passing down some kind of disaster Pokemon in disguise, and that is why they ultimately became cursed and turned into Gimmighoul. Because the destruction that was wrought on that area of the map can be seen still today. The Pokemon that can be found up a waterfall up in that area is Chi-Yu, the firefish Pokemon, but it is not just any regular fish. It would boil water, in fact, turn that water to magma. According to its Pokedex entry, it burns that hot. And sure enough, all over that area of the map, you can see on the mountaintops, they're all tipped with an obsidian-like glass, volcanic glass, even though there's no volcano there. They're tipped that way because of this Pokemon, because of its heat and presence from when it was unsealed and left to wreak havoc on the area. In fact, I do wonder if similar things can be implied about the other Pokemon. The one, for example, that is a vessel. Vessels usually contain something, usually water, and it is found on the north side of the biggest lake in all of the region. I wonder, could the water of the lake somehow come from this Pokemon? It's a stretch, and I really don't know how this would apply to Wu-Chen or Chen-Pao, but I still find it super interesting. These 4 are some of my favorite legendary Pokemon, and I do wonder if we'll learn any more about them in future DLCs, or whether that's it, or perhaps it's all a big nod to a future China Pokemon region. I would love to see. We do know that the East and China are kind of synonymous in the Pokemon world, with old Arcanine Pokedex entries talking about how it was once known as a legendary Pokemon in China, then that was replaced to sort of eastern regions. I wonder if it's all a big hint to a future Pokemon region that we've not yet seen. But you have to let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. I love the lore around all of this, as much as I love Pokemon biology as seen on the Pokemon Tree of Evolution, which you can get yours now using the link at the top of the description. Thank you for the support. I also love the lore and the legends, which is why they have special significance on the tree. Thank you all for watching, and of course, soar high, Pokemon Masters.
This is Ash Ketchum. You just watched a video by Birdkeeper Toby. That makes you a Pokemon Master.
Thank you so much to those who support me on Patreon, allowing me to put out as many videos as I have lately, including the big patrons of this month, Anthony Lee, Elgator, Charmander Aznable, and Jedruben. Thank you.